chant the name, chant your mantra. Because that mantra has the ability to take you from where you are now back to your infinite source. And when you get into that infinite source, all of a sudden you feel aligned. When you're in that suffix, when you're in the state of your infinite being, you don't have to do the right thing. The right thing naturally comes to you. The right decisions come to you. So the idea then is how to get into that state of our divine awareness. Because once we're in that state, whatever life throws at us, we can handle. So that's the main thing. So through depression, through anger, whatever feelings he had, whatever experiences he was going through, as soon as he can go back to it and have recognition, awareness, he started chanting the name. And the name did what? It started diffusing the anger. Like the air conditioning, it acted as an AC unit. So we have to find a practice, whatever that practice is, and we have to hold on to that practice and go back to that practice. And eventually, so what happens is you start to develop a relationship with something greater than you. Say if it's the divine. Then what starts to happen is that anything that happens in life, instead of trying to tackle the situation by yourself, you go back to that divine source. You go back to that God, and you allow the divine to answer through you. So instead of responding, which a lot of us do, something happens to us, then we're going to our friends, to our families, we're all panicked, we're in turbulent states, rajas. And then usually what happens, God is the last resort. Usually we go to God after nothing else works. So the idea here is that how can we make God our first resort? How can we create a relationship with the divine where we start to recognize that the divine, we start to hear something from the divine. It's consciousness that's aware of us. And as we pour forth our problems in this connection, instead of just reacting, we go to the divine, explain the situation, and then wait for a response. Whether that is insight, sattvic insight, whether it's actually something coming from the divine itself, but it's a better response to the situation. So all these things, gunas, is in one sense, is as we go along, they're developmental stages within ourselves. We're developing from no ego to getting an ego, to maturing that ego, to expanding that ego, to connecting with the ego of the divine, to realizing that we are that ego of the divine. And then once we're there, then everything is perfect. Ramakrishna says, what did he say? He said, a perfect dancer never makes a false step. So that's our challenge. The first challenge, not even that. First challenge is to start to recognize in our life what's happening to us right now. Through this guna talk, what I was seeing is by understanding tamas, rajas, and sattva, during the course of the day, I'm starting to recognize when these energies are flowing in and through me. I'm starting to understand, for example, if I'm having a conversation with my father, usually people who are related to or people we're very much have deep personal relationships. They're the ones that can irritate us the most. And we start to see, but it's interesting, we start to see if I continue in this path of conversation, you're starting to see the subtleties of the person. You're starting to see the subtleties of how they're starting to flare up. And how if you go and continue on, there's going to be a boiling over. Not only within that person, but you're starting to see it within yourself. And then you have the ability to say, do I want to continue on this path? Or do I want to stop and redirect my course of action? This happens. There's an awareness that you become aware of. the thing we don't understand, I find sometimes, is we don't understand we're under the influences of these gunas. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, there's these 3 gunas. And he says that sattva also, he binds, they bind us, the gunas bind us. They bind the infinite self into a limited being. How do they bind us? Well, Krishna says that through sattva, through the feeling of goodness, they bind you with happiness. How do they bind you with happiness? Well, even sattva, remember the robber, the sattvic robber? He says, I can't go with you to your home. I can only point you in the right direction. So I can't take you there. So we have to surpass sattva. Sattva can be a binding agent in the sense that if we get good meditations, good experiences of yoga, we get this state of bliss, the state of joy. You know what happens? We want to stay there. We want to keep continually experiencing that. That's good. And that's it's one of the highest desires, because that's coming from within yourself. That's a really good, we all want that desire. We want to be stuck in that desire. That's a great desire to be. But eventually, we even have to go beyond that. We have to let go of the bliss to emerge into our divine infinite self. Rajas. How does Rajas bind us? Again, he says it binds us through our activity. When we're doing something, it's surprisingly how when we do something, our ego gets caught up in the activities we're doing. And then pretty soon, it's got to be our way. We don't want to let go of control because we think we have to make all the money. We have to do it. One thing that I was good, I have good traits and negative traits. One of the traits I was good at when I was in Hollywood was I'm a good organizer. I'm really good at setting up retreats. And one of the things I knew that I had to be responsible. I wanted all control because to me the retreat had to be perfect from beginning to end. And as long as I had full control over everything, I could make it perfect. So I didn't want to give up control because I felt that even if I allowed others to do something, it wouldn't be that perfect thing. The timing wouldn't be perfect. So I had to have control. So it's about recognizing that, you know what? Maybe the better thing to do is giving up that control and trusting that the divine has your back. And whatever happens through the divine, that was what was meant to happen. And allowing others to take responsibilities and cultivating them. Because then there's more efficiency. Things become more productive. Then you're not so agitated and worried. One of the things, if you have control, you're agitated. You're in a very agitated state.
It also sounds like it gets rather exhausting to stay in the Raja.
Absolutely.
I mean, how long can we sustain that?
Absolutely. So what happens naturally, it's a good point. You exhaust yourself from Rajas, and then where do you go to? Tamas.
Unless, and I'm hoping you will reveal some wonderful secret, push yourself to the other side.
Remember, from Tamas, how do you get back to Rajas? Pain. It's because if you're doing it from your own ego, you start to get exhausted. You need the craving. The craving is you need the recognition. Everything has to be done your way. But you're right. You start to exhaust yourself. You don't want to let go of the fruits. If you can do the work and let go of the fruits, then you start to see there's a higher power that starts to work through you. You don't feel that exhaustion.
I think I have used Raja to keep me out of tamas. Not for recognition or any of the other things of Raja, but just to keep me from
Sure.
being in a tamas state of mind.
Yeah.
So the key to transcending to Supa or Sattva?
Sattva.
Sattva.
Yes.
Is something that I need to learn more.
Right. That again, what are the 2 qualities we found in Sattva? One of the 2 qualities was the introversion, going within, consciousness that was going out. You take your awareness now inside. The second quality was also an expansion of your own identity, starting from me expanding to a sense of we, us, community, a feeling for others. That is sattva. So you see that curve, it starts to expand. Okay. Before in Rajas, the expansion was the ego, the individual self, you as a person. It's all about you, the expansion. But as you gear more towards sattva, it's starting to expand. Less you, more others. Some questions. Okay, you, and then you. Okay.
Going from Rajas to Sattvic, in my opinion, monks are very Sattvic people. They have given up the Rajas part, for example, Buddha. But many children seek to be monks, even at the age of 7, 8, 9. What are they really looking for? Is there an external pressure on them, or is it their internal something is leading them towards the sattvic path of life? Especially I have seen that in Jain religion.
In Jain religion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Young boys.
You know, one of the things I do see, being a monk, joining here, is that everybody has their own path of evolution. Every one of us. And there's no... In Buddhism, they had the mistake that they wanted everybody to become monks, and so it slowly deteriorated.
That's right.
So in the scale of human population, you know, that the reason we're here is because we all have desires. We were born because we have desires. We've come to work those desires out. So where can we work? Where's the best place to work those desires out so that we don't get bound by them again? Okay, that we don't create more desires. So when you talk about, let's say, monasticism, that's I think for a very few group of individuals. And also, to be honest with you, there are many people who join. In our headquarters, Bellarmont, 80% of the people that join within 2 years, they leave. Because they understand that this is not their path. There is a place in India called Mayavati. Mayavati is in the Himalayan mountains. If you go to that ashram, you're in solitude a great deal of time. It's very difficult, we find. They don't send beginners, even intermediates. More advanced people can go there. Because why? You're there primarily by yourself, and by yourself it's just left to meditation. But if you have desires to work out, and if you go to a place of solitude, that can be a place of hell. And you find that many people who come in thinking they want to be monks, after experiences, after some time, they realize that they have desires here, that this is not the life for them. And if they stay on this path, and there are monks that stay on the path, they can actually go into a tamasic state, a state of depression. So everybody has their own path of evolution. And I don't find that any path is higher or lower. Every one of us, you know, again, I said this last time, every one of us has our own swabhava, our own inner predisposition, our own personality, our own unique sets of traits within us that make us us. So according to our swabhava, according to our own predisposition, we have to find our own swadharma, our own path, our own inner propensity towards truth, towards enlightenment. What is our path? That's what we have to explore. And so, when you say monks, when you say, I even look in Bellarmont, I look at monks in a bell curve. I was there with maybe there's 1,500 monks in our organization, and probably about 300 at the specific place, headquarters. So in any organization, you're going to still have those that are sort of a little bit in the tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic. Few people are really in that sattvic style, even within the monks. Okay, and so they're the real, true definition of monks. My gunas is very rajasic. We choose a lifestyle in which we come to work out. The beauty of the Ramakrishna order is we can work out these sanskaras through our activities, through the work we do, and try to expand more towards sattva. That's the environment offers that. Okay.
But how does the 7 or 8-year-old go towards?
How does the 7, 8 again? So we can try to do educate that. Someone was saying that. So through education, through putting them in the right environment. Okay, what you do is you create some samskaras. So my parents used to take me to a temple when I was a very young boy, and I used to sleep when the swamis would lecture. Okay, I didn't care, but somehow something was being planted inside me. And I'm not saying it makes you something, but what happens as the result is that when I went to college for the first time by myself, you're in a family, especially Indian families can be very tight. Okay, so you go off and experience your own life. Then for the first time, you're having your own experiences and your own consciousness there to guide you. So the one thing that I started seeing was that some scars started coming up in the scenario of a party, and telling you, guiding you, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. Okay? And then there's some experiences that you find you have to go through that you can't avoid, because if you avoid them, they keep coming back up. So you just have to go through them. You go through them with intelligence, with discrimination. Yes, let me go through the experience of that keeps coming up within me, but let me understand what this experience is giving me. Just like with the beer. Okay, go drink yourself, but understand what is happening within you. And do you like it? That's the thing, is we're going through life experiencing things, but not with a sattvic state of mind. We're going through life experiencing things with a tamasic state of mind, or rajasic. So we're not capturing the full experience. We're not learning the full lesson of what that experience has to offer. If we experience things, whatever, with the sattvic mind, we can capture the understanding and lesson that we can learn, and then we can fulfill that desire and say, no mas, no more. What next? Tatakim, what next? You're here next, and then you're.
I have a question about what's the relationship between satya and sattvic point?
Satya meaning truth, and sattvic meaning that. So to me, the relationship is this. Good question. Truth is embodied in the sattvic person. Okay? So that truth, I'll say it like this. Morality. In Hinduism, we don't talk so much about like a God says you should follow these commandments. And if you don't follow, you're disobeying God. Where's morality based on within Hinduism or Vedanta? It's based on who you truly are, your divine nature. Your divine nature is Satchitananda. Your divine nature is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Your divine nature is truth. So, if you're not aligned with truth, you're not being who you really are. Your divine nature is aligned. Your divine nature is love. You are love. Ananda. And if you're not expressing, giving unconditional love, you're not aligned with who you really are. You're not being who you really are. So sattvic is just the expression of satya. Satya is the principle of truth. How it's expressed in an embodied being is a sattvic state.
So what's beyond it?
So I'm saying, so in a state that is as high as possible, we're expressing that truth through that sattvic person. So beyond, what's beyond that? Again, that's to be you. Yes, I'm just giving, you have that truth, filtering out through a sattvic person here, okay? So a person beyond that, beyond sattva, is one who's permanently established in God realization. Okay? So in Sattva, still you're seeing diversity. Still you see everything as individual, and still you still have a sense of separation. There's still me and God. Okay? Beyond that is the understanding that I am the divine. And the divine is flowing out through me in these various activities. So it's just the natural. That is what Ramakrishna called the Vijnani. Beyond Jnana, there's the special Jnani, Vijnani, the one who sees the unity in the diversity. They feel and experience themselves as God, the light of consciousness. They also feel and experience that light of consciousness is in every other being. And they see that each being is just a wave of that infinite consciousness, that same consciousness. So there's a sameness that they see. There's a sense of if they hurt someone, they feel they're hurting their own self. It's the expansion. My sense of identity right now, my sense of awareness is limited to this. If I hurt my toe, I feel like, I don't say like, okay, that's your problem. Okay? I go and I help the toe because I feel hurt. So someone who's established in God consciousness sees that consciousness everywhere. I give you an example. Someone I've actually had the privilege to meet. There's a Swami Harinamananda. He was in Sacramento. He was a disciple of Swami Shivananda, who's a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. He passed away in 1996. When you met him, anybody meet Swami Harinamananda? No? Okay. He was a very egoless soul. To me, he was someone who had experienced God consciousness. So when we go walking out in the garden, one of the things we'd see with him, we'd see that he would they have a big garden in Sacramento. He'd go around and talk to the different plants. He'd see, oh, hello, how are you doing, Mr. Plant? Oh, how are you doing? How are you feeling today? He'd see this consciousness permeating, radiating out of these different concepts. It was amazing. He would see them as living, as conscious. Conscious means that you're aware of them and they're aware of you. Consciousness is that which is conscious of you. When God becomes conscious to you, means that darshan, not only are you seeing God, but you feel God is seeing you. That is darshan. Darshan is a two-way thing. Darshan right now is one way. We feel, oh, we got to have the darshan of God. Okay, we see God. Okay, that's it. We're off. We have to feel that there's a consciousness that is actually seeing us, recognizing us. So anyways, just to answer that question, one who's established in God is one who sees that consciousness everywhere and feels that presence everywhere, doesn't feel a sense of separation, feels a sense of love that spontaneously just arises. And so it's one thing. When you're in the presence of these divine beings, again, you find that whether you're tamasic or rajasic, when you get into their presence, it's not that they answer your questions because the mind is agitated and you think they're going to answer everything. No. When you get into their presence, it's not the answers are solved, they are dissolved. Your presence, the vibrations of that rajas and tamas starts to get elevated and you feel a more expanded sense. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, Swami, I forgot the problem I was going to ask you. I just forgot. And that's it. When we come here, we feel we can get elevated in that state. The problem is how to hold on to it when we drive off. Here.
I just forgot to ask you.
That's good.
But your comment on darshan gave me goosebumps. My quick question is this, right? So when you're trying to traverse from tamas to rajas to sattva, right? There are, as I understand it, and I'm superimposing my little knowledge.
We all are, yes. We're here to discuss this and get clarity.
So there are these three shakti, right? Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti,
Jnana Shakti,
Kriya Shakti.
right.
I'll let you explain that.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Now, how do you use these three? Is it a conscious, active process of using or is it a subconscious process, or is it just plain grace or a combination? How do you?
Yeah, it's good. Good question. It's a really good question. And I think spiritual journey is that at different places, different things are relative to us. So these Shaktis you're talking about. So let's see if they can be integrated in the talk here. Jnana Shakti means knowing. It's the power to know. So we talked about knowing is the sattvic state. Kriya Shakti is doing. And so in Kriya Shakti, we find it's more the Rajasic state. Icha Shakti is here willing, desiring. Okay? So I think Icha Shakti here, remember I talked about in tamas, what's the one thing that helps us get out of tamas? Desire. Remember? The tamasic person doesn't have any desire. So we need to cultivate a desire, make it stronger and stronger, that agitation that forces us into rajas. So, off the top of my head, I think one step we understand is we need to gain an awareness of all these. We need to do these consciously. Okay? We need to do, we need to know, and we need to will. These are all things that we have to cultivate within ourselves. Consciously. We can't allow these things. Tamasic allows things to happen because they're tamasic. So, one of the escapes of tamas will say that, okay, I read surrender to God. I'll just surrender to God. Is that the proper thing for a tamasic person to do? What happens if you surrender as a tamasic person? What's going to happen? Will you get enlightened? What happens? Stagnation. Self-delusion. You go into a spiral that takes you down and down and down and down. Inertia, entropy. So, that's not the right principle or teaching in that stage or consciousness of mind. What is the right teaching or what's the right stage? Again, to start getting some activation of will, to start having some control, to start doing something. So you really have to activate Kriya Shakti. You have to do something. Okay. Then, maybe as we go from Rajas to Sattva, we have all this energy that we're going everywhere. What's the proper thing to do now from Rajas to Sattva? How do we restrain our energy? How do we focus our energy? So in these three things, Icha and Jnana, Icha, will or knowing. How? So using the power of knowing, okay, I've got all this energy. In which direction should I focus it in now? I have energy going out. How can I use that energy to restrain the energy, harness the energy, so I can, like a magnifying glass, take the sun and now focus it inward? So this is maybe this Jnana Shakti, the knowing aspect, that gives us more revelation, knowledge, in this sense here. Okay. So anyway, I don't know if I answered your question. The main thing is, remember what I said? These three gunas, and the first thing I said, these three gunas are states of awareness. We have to gain awareness. That's what we have to do. Girish Ghosh, a disciple of Ramakrishna, was asked by Ramakrishna, okay, can you do some meditation? Can you do some mantra? He said, no, I can't do this. No, I can't do that. Okay. All right, give me the power of attorney. He says, okay, I can do that. Then he asks, what does it mean to give the power of attorney? What does it mean to give my power to Ramakrishna? And he started questioning everything he was doing. When he's opening up the door, am I opening the door? Or is Ramakrishna opening the door? When he's cooking food, am I doing this? Or is Ramakrishna? Awareness. You start becoming aware of every little thing you're doing. What's my intention behind my actions? in whatever I'm receiving, whatever impressions I'm gathering. What is this doing? Do I feel expanded or am I feeling contracted? My associations, expanded or contracted? The food I eat, expanded or contracted? Be aware. Before we can even offer to God, we have to be aware of what we're offering. So you had a question here.
About these 3 stages, isn't it that all of us, most of us, go through these stages constantly? Or someone can be, of course, if like Swami or enlightened people can be more in a state of sattva.
Right.
But what makes us, isn't that having more knowledge, for instance, as she said, people that are going from younger age, or some of us that we are reading, that knowledge of that stages, these 3 stages, give us some awareness so we can bring, be aware of our feeling.
Right.
And to be of which stage we are, so it helps us to get out of that.
Yes.
That all of us, we are going through stages in every moment, can be every day.
Sure.
Or
Yes. So what we normally find is that all of us are going through all these different stages. When you sleep, that's a tamasic. Waking up, you're tamasic. You need coffee to stimulate some rajas, so you get some rajas. And then as we get that rajas, as we do our activities, then maybe when we go into some like type of studying or something like that, or introspection, we start to become more balanced. We turn into insights. But we're constantly going through these 3 stages. You're correct. So what you do find is that, it's a very good question, that we are constantly going through these 3 things. And then you'll find there is a predominance of where you are maybe during the course of your life. Okay? And that's also true. So let me mention another thing. In another respect, these qualities don't always have to be negative. When do we need tamas? When is tamas a positive quality? When we need rest. We need to restore ourselves. We need rest. You ever, when I was working on this talk, what would happen? I was working it was a couple days, so I had to like really work on it. And what I was finding is all this activity in my mind was very rajasic. When I tried to go to sleep, I couldn't go to sleep. It was just very mentally stimulated. I was like, God, I wish I had some tamas in me. So we need tamas to rest. We need tamas to recover. It's a good thing. These tamas, all these qualities can have pros and cons. I was sort of going through it from an evolutionary point of view, from negative to positive. Rajas is a very good quality. The quality of activity. Vivekananda, when you see he wants to do things for mankind. Okay? That's a Rajas sattvic quality. It's the intersection between both. So it's great to do something. The question is, who are we doing it for? Okay? So, yes, absolutely. To answer your question, we're all, if you watch your mind, it's like we're constantly in and out. After we eat lunch, what happens? Thomas, why do you think that 5-hour drink was created? To reactivate some rajas. Okay? So all these things are what we call balancing of the gunas. We're constantly trying to balance our gunas. The problem is now, suppose like for me, if I need to work on a talk and I'm not feeling the sattvic state of mind, I'm not going to be very productive. Because then I'm tackling my tamas and raj. Tamas side is telling me, oh, you know what? You still have a month to do. Instead, you know what? Let's CNN's on. Let's just go see what's happening with Donald Trump. Okay? or there's basketball things going on. The tamasic side is about fun and easy. It wants things that are fun and easy. So it's that energy that comes up. I call him the tamasic monster. the Tamasic monkey. When the Tamasic monkey comes up, all of a sudden we feel like we feel he takes the rational thinker, the sattvic side, and we think, okay, I've got a month. Let me plan out my talk here. I've got in this days I'm going to do all this. It's like it pushes him aside. You know, let me handle the steering wheel for a moment. Let me take over. We're going to do something funny. We're going to relax. You know, you got still a month.
Procrastination.
It's the procrastination. Exactly. And then, you know what happens? 3 days before the talk, guess what happens? All of a sudden, the Rajasic image monster wakes up. And that image monster says, like, what's going on here? You know what? You've got to talk in 3 days. And you haven't done anything. And the Tamasic monkey is like, oh, we still got 3 days. And no problem. And the Rajasic image, so are you crazy? And he chases the Tamasic monkey up the trees. Right? And now, the Rajasic image monster is like pleading with the rational thinker. Oh, you've got to save the day. You've got to get working on this talk, because if you don't work on this talk, I'm going to be looking like a fool. I can't allow that. So please, sit down, get to work. And so after the image monster, Rajasic, starts to die down, a little bit calm down, the sattvic rational thinker gets up. He's like, okay, let's see what we can do. And he starts working, and then some insight starts to come. But guess who's behind him the whole time? The image monster. He's like, just making sure, just checking on you. We've got 2 days left. And he's like, okay, we got this. Don't worry about it. Get away. So, these are the 3 gunas in operation.
You mentioned in Tamasic guna, a person starts feeling like, why me, and victim, and blames others, and you mentioned that if you start blaming others, then you can get out of this. One of the things.
Right.
How do you stop blaming others?
Well, I think you have to first recognize that it's hard, okay? But it begins by recognizing that this is not doing you any good. That these are anchors. They're like anchors. You're trying to row the boat to go forward, but you're stuck here, and you can't move. So you have to recognize that, you know, although somebody may have wronged you, somebody may have done something that you don't like, for whatever intention, that ultimately you're not getting any benefit. So, and you may not understand from the divine point of view why this was necessary. But you have to try to ask God to help you let go. Because by letting go of forgiving that person, you're starting to rid yourself of that toxicity that's built up within you. Because you need to go on. And from the divine perspective, maybe we think that the divine has put that person there because you have this experience you have to work through. And the only way you can work through this experience is by going through what you have to go through. And until you learn that lesson, you're going to stay anchored. And if not them, somebody else is going to put you in that same place. So how can I stop blaming others? That's a spiritual practice.
You talked about anxiety and traumas. How can we use these techniques to overcome those feelings and move into higher states of consciousness?
Yeah. Yeah, the traumas and the that stuff I was talking about was in that tamasic state, right? So, and that's where I think Western psychology therapy is really good. It's that facet that I find sometimes in Indian psychology that we're missing. So, I mean, it accepts it. It accepts that through that therapy work. And sometimes they talk about reliving the experience, bringing the samskaras that are repressed, that we've pushed into the unconscious part of ourselves. How can we bring those up and burn them out? That's really the question here. So, so that's in that sense. These techniques is again about bringing up awareness. Thomas is bringing light into the darkness. Tamas is a very dark place to be in. Remember what I said? It's a room that's not lit. It's dark. How can we start bringing some light into that? Yes, meditation. But again, meditation, what happens if you're tamasically inclined, meditation, we start focusing on, meditation is focusing the mind. And if we start focusing the mind, what happens? We start focusing on all the wrong things, on what's within our dark closet. And that amplifies what's there.
I think you were saying something about it's kind of like to pull ourselves out of those different stages, and so we don't fall back. It's
Right.
almost utilizing all the different parts at the same time, be able to recognize what it is that got us there, what it is that put us there, what it is that we need to do, what is it that we need to do next.
Right.
And so it's kind of incorporating all that, because then it's the meditation, then it's the action, then it's this, then it's that, then it's doing something, some self-service.
Sure,
and then,
sure,
then
yes,
it's also recognizing not just what the things are there where we're blaming ourselves, we're feeling as though why is this happening to us? Why are people doing this? Or why blame ourselves? Then we
Yes.
realize that we have to kind of like supersede that with the therapy, what you're talking about, something like that, and then coming to the place of understanding.
Right.
And then that takes us to be able to be aware and to see, and then we are able to then begin to appreciate the things that are in our lives, which we might not have been able to appreciate before.
Correct.
So
Right.
it's kind of like a interweaving type of thing
right.
that you were saying. It's kind of like
Yeah.
using everything at the same time to be able to maneuver ourselves out
Yeah.
and
Yeah. No,
to the place of peace.
that's true.
I
She gave a whole
spoke very
she gave a
fast.
whole synopsis there. But specifically, I think if you're just looking at sometimes when we're in those dark places and that, how do we get out? I mean, we have to look at AA.
Yeah.
I mean, first thing is to find company that is going in the right direction. So we need to find people who are associations, big thing, that will help us to recognize what we have within, and that it's okay. We can accept this. But now, how do we move out of that space? And, we see like AA is a perfect example of the 12-step process, how to move out. I mean, there's various ways. I'm just giving you I'm trying in a general way, basically, how to, because it depends on, specific instructions depend on your own swabhava, on your own, on where you are. Okay? So I'm just giving general ways of looking at things. But to me, associations are a very big way. Just trying to get out of that space that you're in. Here's another thing. Suppose you set a deadline. How to get to do something. Yeah, let's say, first of all, do something for somebody else. When you do something for somebody else, you start to you're not identified with your own problems anymore. You start to expand your sense of self to somebody else. Second, have a deadline to do something. If you have a deadline, it's not murky anymore. You feel like, okay, procrastinators like me sometimes, we don't work unless we have deadlines. It's the deadline that rises the energy within us. And it's that energy then that pushes us out. So have a deadline. Make a commitment, to other people, not to yourself. Because to yourself, it doesn't work when you're tamasic. You don't care about yourself. So commitment to yourself is a commitment to no one. Because you think you're nobody. So try to make a commitment to somebody else and let them check, make a check and balance. What's happening? Where are you going with this thing? You said you were going to do it? Have a check and balance system. Okay. So anyways, these are just some few general ways of looking at it. You guys had some comments. Go ahead.
I love what you said about association. I read somewhere husband and wife psychologists, they were making a recommendation that we are wounded in relationship,
Right.
so we heal in relationship.
Right.
And not by isolating or just staying within our own head,
Right.
which would be the tamasic state. So I'm seeing how all this is like.
Right. Don't forget, in a tamasic relationship here, if you're the person that's so filled with baggage, you have no light coming out, you're looking for another person to give you light. A tamasic relationship is a relationship that's based on dependence. There's a saying in the Upanishads, he shines, everything shines. God shines, everything shines. You shine, everything else shines. Here, tamasic, I don't feel any shining. There's no shining. There's no light coming out. So I'm looking for another person's light to define who I am, to give me joy. Okay, tamasic relationship becomes very dependent.
Well, I was talking more about like if you're in that tamasic state, going to a therapist.
Yeah.
That would be a way of
Right.
association
Right.
and a relationship with a therapist helping you heal.
Yeah.
Going to AA if you're in need of that.
Right.
Finding an association with a group of people that help you
That's
heal,
true.
as opposed to isolating and
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
moving into an action.
Right.
where
Absolutely. Yeah.
Isn't the equivalent of
Forming a
association?
relationship with others.
Yeah.
that are
Absolutely.
positive.
Yes. Correct.
Sorry. Isn't the equivalent of associations the satsang?
Yeah.
It's known as the company of
The holy.
sat people.
Yeah.
Or,
Right.
good people. Essentially.
So that's one type of relationship, right? So that's what we call divine relationship or holy relationship. So that's at the sattvic level. So in a rajasic level, here we're talking about again the direction, right? Remember, so what's important? Rajas, you have energy. Are you directing that energy towards tamas? Are you becoming more isolated, or it's becoming more selfish? Or are you directing that energy towards sattva, or are you becoming more selfless? Okay. So again, association here also, depending on the association you need. So satsang exactly is divine relationship. And one Swami defined satsang, actually a holy company, as anything that inspires you to the divine. So it could be books, could be associations, it could be nature, anything that inspires you, your animals. Associations that inspire you to greater awareness. But in this sense, sometimes if you're in that, you need rajasic association. You need that association that's going to activate you. It's going to make you feel maybe competitive, bring out the rajas energy.
If you look at the depression and those facets of tamas, or the Western psychology and the Western apparatus,
Right.
a lot comes from
Yes.
all that. And of course, rajas going wrong. You have the police and the law, so that can also be helpful.
Yes.
But I'm talking about for somebody who's working on themselves. I saw this somewhere on YouTube, but I could not verify it, and I like your comments on it. Is it that if you want to get out of tamas, a good way to do that is to work through, one of the ways to work through is to do the breathing exercise.
Yeah, that's a good, right. That's great.
And to work out of rajas is to do yoga so that the excess energy is burnt out.
Mm,
And to maintain sattva, you do meditation so that you keep.
perfect.
Is it true?
That's good. That's a great. I spoke at a Iyengar yoga class in San Diego, and they what's that?
Angry yoga?
Angry yoga?
No, not. Yes,
Listen now,
that's a
really
tamasic
listen.
yoga. Anger yoga. That's a good one. Anger yoga. No, Iyengar yoga.
Oh.
Okay, and it was a Wednesday or something like that. So exactly what you're saying is what they're talking about, and about breathing, pranayama, energizing, vitality. That is to get you in that rajasic state. Yes, and you find in the Indian philosophy, the Sankhya, when you cosmology, the rajasic is the pranayama, is the prana state, and then the sattvic state is the mind state. So then through meditation you work your way into that mental.
Where can I find more information on this? Actually, that statement I found on YouTube.
Yeah.
Google.
Right. Gunas is something that I find, the reason I went to Gunas topic is because I wanted to discover about myself, understand myself, That's why I really went to the gunas, and so there's not one specific place, because what you find in our Indian philosophy, we explain things in a very philosophical sense. Okay, when we talk about, but I was looking for a more pragmatic sense, and a way also to map myself, to understand. You know, there's mapping. We can map ourselves through personality, kind of like charts. So this is a way, the gunas, how to map myself. You know, my tamasic side, my raja. With what people? What is it that I find resistance to? What parts of my life do I find resistance in my life? Where do I find resistance in my life? So, and there's different aspects. Sometimes it's the aspect, I don't like to work on talks. There's a resistance when it comes to doing this. There's other things. So we find tamas in various aspects of our pockets of our life. How to make that self-aware? There's things that are rajasic that activates us. And where can we be sattvic? Because sattva is a very difficult thing to get into, opening that door. And once you get into that door, how can you stay in it? Knowing when you're sattvic, go meditate. Sarvadevanandaji Maharaj, the Swami, if you find yourself in that meditative state, feeling like it, drop whatever you're doing and go there. It's a rare state. So we find during different times of the day, they say, tamas is night, rajas is day. No, sattva is day. During transitional periods, day, night, night, day, is they call rajasic. And rajasic, this one person was saying, is because it's easy to change. Energy can be changed at that moment. So when you're going from the transition of night to day, you know, all of a sudden, the quietness, the animals, there's a period of silence. And you go from that, the night animals to the day activity. Everything just stops silent. In that no movement. How does that influence the mind? The mind, which is always in kind of like motion, starts to become quiet for that moment. Take advantage of that moment. Again, same thing. Sunset, sunsetting tonight. Again, everything starts to become still. For a split moment in time, everything is still, that transition. It's like Mother Nature is taking off her garments and putting on a new set of garments. And in between, you see her naked self. Our minds quiet down. Take advantage of that. So I start to map my mind. When am I feeling sattvic, rajasic, tamasic? And when I'm feeling rajasic, what can I do to get me out of that? Especially tamas. So let's it's getting late, and I think we are getting I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling that the body's starting to getting a little hunger. So let's make the last question. It's okay.
This was not a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to that. Meditation doesn't mean that that's what I think is that it's necessarily samadhi state, or for a gardener it could be going to a garden could be meditation. For me, for example, being in my lab is meditation.
Sure.
When I'm in my lab, I'm very happy.
Sure. It's for different people, different things. Going out to nature, you know, doing something creative, whatever puts you in that sattvic mind. So anyways, thank you everybody for coming. Okay, thank you.